It was almost midnight in Lagos. The once busy restaurant was now quiet. Tables had been cleared, chairs tucked in, and the soft hum of the ceiling fan echoed through the empty hall. Outside, traffic still buzzed in the distance. Cynthia stood near the entrance, holding her small black handbag, ready to head home. Her shift had ended 2 hours ago, but she stayed behind to tidy up. It wasn't just about duty, it was about survival. She needed to hold on to this job with all her strength. As she stepped out of the restaurant, the night chill brushing against her arms, she saw something that made her heart pound. Benjamin, her boss. He was staggering near his parked black Bentley, dressed in his signature white kaftan and red cap, barely able to stand straight. In his hand, he clutched his car key, mumbling to himself as he tried and failed to open the car door. Cynthia froze. No, this can't be happening, she thought. If he enters that car, he's going to kill himself. Or someone else. She rushed toward him. "Sir, please, let me help you," she said, trying to steady him by placing her right hand over his shoulder. He looked at her with bleary eyes. "Cynthia, you know you're beautiful, right?" He slurred, swaying. "I've always admired your beauty. But now, you want to mock me? Do you think I can't drive again?" "No, sir," she said softly, trying to hide the panic in her voice. "That's not what I mean. But let me help you today. Just today." Benjamin looked at her. For a moment, it seemed he might collapse right there on the sidewalk. After a few tense minutes, he dropped the keys into her hand and whispered, "Don't kill me, Cynthia." She managed a small smile, even though her hands were trembling. "I won't, sir." She opened the car door and helped him inside. Then she climbed into the driver's seat of the expensive Bentley, something she never imagined she'd touch in her lifetime, and turned the ignition. The road to Ikoyi was long and slow. Lagos traffic at night was unpredictable. Some areas were dead silent, while others buzzed with life. Every time she looked at the rearview mirror, she could see Benjamin slumped in the back seat, murmuring in his sleep. By the time they pulled into the large, gated mansion, it was 3 a.m. Cynthia turned off the engine, stepped out, and opened the back door. Benjamin was half asleep, groaning. She helped him inside, greeted coldly by a security man, who raised his brows but said nothing. Inside the massive home, Cynthia was overwhelmed. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, grand staircases. It was like something out of a movie. Carefully, she led Benjamin to his bedroom and laid him on the king-sized bed, covering him with a light blanket. She tiptoed out, unsure what to do next. She couldn't go back home that late. Her parents lived far in Ege, and there was no way she'd find transport at that hour. So she picked a soft couch in the living room, sat down gently, pulled her bag close to her chest, and laid her head back. Before long, sleep took her. Tap, tap. A light tap on her shoulder startled her awake. Her eyes fluttered open. Morning sunlight streamed through the window, bathing the room in soft gold. Standing before her was Benjamin, fully awake, his face filled with confusion. "Cynthia," he said, his voice hoarse. She sat up quickly, adjusting her wrinkled waitress dress. "Good morning, sir," she said gently. "You're strong now." Benjamin rubbed his temple. "Wait, what happened? Why are you here?" She smiled. "You were very drunk last night. You couldn't drive. I saw you and I drove you home." He stared at her. "You drove? You can drive?" Cynthia nodded. "Yes, sir. My father taught me." Tears welled up in Benjamin's eyes. He placed a hand on his chest. "Cynthia, you saved my life." That moment was the beginning of something none of them expected. Benjamin, Nigerian billionaire, CEO of Benjamin Emeka Group, stood quietly, looking at the young waitress who had just saved his life, sleeping on his couch in her rumpled uniform. There was something about her beyond her beauty that shook him deeply. "Tell me about yourself," he said softly. Cynthia looked surprised. "Sir, please, tell me everything." She did. Everything, from her university struggle, her good result with no job, her father's old taxi, her mother's illness, and how she ended up working as a waitress through her father's friend. How she cried many nights alone. How she almost gave up. Benjamin sat there, stunned. This girl, this woman, was a gem buried under hardship. He stood and said, "You can't go to work today." "Sir?" she asked, confused. He grinned. "Follow me." He drove her to an upscale supermarket and told her to pick any clothes she liked. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly, still wearing her waitress shoes. "Because, for the first time in a long time, someone helped me expecting nothing in return." He dropped her off at her home later that day, shocking her poor parents, who were still reeling from fear after her midnight call. But this was just the beginning, because what Cynthia didn't know was that her single act of kindness was about to open doors no one in her family had ever imagined. The next day felt like a dream. Cynthia stood in front of the mirror in her small bedroom, staring at the new clothes she had picked from the supermarket. A soft blue blouse and black trousers that hugged her modest figure just right. Her hair was packed neatly in a bun, and her skin glowed from the simple shea butter her mother always made at home. Her mother, Mama Loveth, peeked in through the door with a puzzled smile. "Cynthia, are you sure your boss gave you the day off? And these clothes?" Cynthia nodded, still unsure how to explain the whirlwind of the last 24 hours. "It's nothing serious, Mama. He just wanted to thank me," she said. Her father, Maxwell, was outside working on his battered taxi again. The old car coughed and hissed every time it started, but it had been his only source of income for over a decade. Cynthia had learned how to drive in that same car, dodging potholes and Danfo buses as she helped him on bad days. By noon, Cynthia's phone buzzed. It was a strange number. "Hello?" she answered. "Cynthia, it's Benjamin," the voice on the other end said calmly. Her heart skipped. "Good afternoon, sir. I want to see you today. If you're free." She looked around, surprised. "Yes, I'm free. I'll send a driver. Please, no waitress uniform." Within an hour, a black SUV was parked in front of her house, drawing stares from neighbors. The driver stepped out and opened the door for her like she was royalty. Her father watched silently, wiping his greasy hands on his trousers. Benjamin was waiting at a rooftop restaurant in Victoria Island. He stood as she arrived, pulling out a seat for her. "I hope this place is okay," he said. Cynthia was stunned by the view of the city below. "It's more than okay, sir." "Please, no more sir. Just Benjamin." That lunch changed everything. They talked for over an hour about life, family, goals. Benjamin wanted to know everything about her. When she mentioned graduating with a second-class upper in accounting from Unilag, his eyes widened. "You studied accounting?" he asked. She nodded. "And you've been a waitress since then?" "It was all I could get. Companies said I lacked experience. I tried, but..." Benjamin leaned back, thoughtful. "You know we have a few accounting roles open at my holding company. Would you want to work with me?" "Officially?" Cynthia stared at him, her lips parted, but no words came. "I mean it," he said. "You're smart, focused, and you just saved my life. That counts for more than a CV." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Thank you, Benjamin." The next few weeks were like stepping into a new world. Cynthia was employed as a junior accountant at Benjamin Emeka Group. She received a decent salary, a furnished office, and mentorship from one of the most respected CFOs in Lagos. Benjamin didn't treat her like a charity case. He respected her ideas, valued her mind, and gave her space to grow. But the office wasn't blind. Whispers began. "Have you seen how the boss looks at her? She must have done something to impress him. One night in his house and boom, new job?" But Cynthia ignored them. Her focus was on the work. Benjamin, however, wasn't ignoring anything. He began to drop by her office just to say hi. He invited her to dinner once a week. He visited her modest home in Agage unannounced one Sunday, surprising Maxwell and Mama Loveth. He sat on their old wooden couch, laughed with her father, and helped serve jollof rice like he was part of the family. By the third visit, the whole street knew the young billionaire was courting Cynthia. the once ordinary waitress. They looked good together, Benjamin in his classic white kaftan and Cynthia in her neat dresses, her eyes always glowing with gratitude and disbelief. Then came the proposal. It was quiet, just the two of them, sitting under a mango tree behind her parents' house. Benjamin held out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but elegant gold ring. "I want to build a life with you, Cynthia," he said. "Not because you helped me, but because you remind me of the kind of life I want, real, honest, full of heart." She couldn't hold back the tears. "Yes," she whispered, throwing her arms around him. Their wedding came a year later, a beautiful ceremony in Lagos, attended by top executives, politicians, and street vendors who used to greet Cynthia every morning at the restaurant. Everyone was in awe. The former waitress who once slept on a billionaire's couch now walked down the aisle in a white lace gown, smiling as the man she once drove home drunk placed a ring on her finger. But not everyone was happy. In a dusty corner of Anambra State, a man watched the celebration from a small TV in his beer parlor. Obinna, Cynthia's uncle, tightened his jaw as he watched the news highlight her wedding. "That land belongs to me," he muttered under his breath. You see, years ago, Maxwell had a small piece of farmland in the village. But when Cynthia left for university, Obinna used influence from shady politicians to grab the land. Maxwell didn't fight back, he was too poor to face a legal battle. But now, Cynthia's husband was a billionaire, and Obinna knew his grip was slipping. A few weeks later, trouble began to brew. Maxwell left home one morning for his usual taxi rounds and didn't return. His phone line was dead. His taxi, abandoned near a shoddy. Cynthia was the first to feel something was wrong. Her father was never late. By evening, she called Benjamin, her hands trembling. "I can't reach Daddy." Benjamin, now a father of twin daughters and CEO of multiple companies, didn't hesitate. "I'll handle it," he said. That night, his private security team swept through Lagos like a storm. But what they uncovered left them speechless. Maxwell had been kidnapped and all trails pointed back to the one man Cynthia never expected to face again. It was past midnight, and Cynthia couldn't sleep. She sat on the floor of her bedroom, hugging her knees, still wearing the same clothes from the morning her father disappeared. Her twin daughters were asleep in their crib, unaware of the storm brewing. Benjamin paced the room quietly, speaking into his phone. His voice was low but firm. "Any update? Check every corner of Oshodi again. I don't care what it costs, bring him home." When he ended the call, he walked over to Cynthia and knelt beside her. "We'll find him," he whispered. But Cynthia's eyes were already red from crying. "What if something bad has happened? What if—" "Don't say that," Benjamin interrupted. "Your father is strong. He taught you how to drive a taxi on those crazy Lagos roads, remember? A man like that doesn't just vanish." Cynthia nodded slowly, but her heart still raced. 2 days earlier, Maxwell had woken up early, like always, kissed his wife on the forehead, and headed out with his rickety taxi. He had a few loyal passengers who depended on him for school runs and market errands. As he drove toward Oshodi, he noticed a group of young men standing near the road, waving as though they needed a ride. He slowed down to ask for their destination, but before he could say a word, one of them opened the passenger door and pointed a small gun at him. "Just drive," the man said coldly. Maxwell's heart jumped. "Please, what do you want?" "Drive!" the man shouted. He obeyed. They took turns directing him until they got to a quiet, bushy area on the outskirts of town. Then, they blindfolded him, pulled him out of the car, and dragged him into an abandoned building. Hours passed. Maxwell's hands were tied, his legs sore, but his ears were sharp. He heard them mention a name, Obinna, his own brother, back in Lagos. Cynthia sat with Benjamin's chief of security, a former DSS operative named Mr. Aid. The man was in his late 40s, tall, built like a brick wall, and didn't smile often. "We traced the last movement of your father's taxi," Mr. Aid explained, pointing at a digital map. "It was stopped by a group of young men here. We believe it's a planned abduction." Benjamin leaned over. "Any idea who's behind it?" Mr. Aid hesitated, then pulled out a photo. Cynthia's jaw dropped. That's my uncle, she said. Obinna. Benjamin's face darkened. What's his problem? Cynthia took a deep breath. Years ago, after I got into university, my father left our family land in Obinna's care. But when we returned during holiday, he had built a house on it and claimed it was his. My dad didn't have the money or the strength to fight him. It broke him. Benjamin stood abruptly and grabbed his phone. Then it's time I broke something back. Meanwhile, in the kidnapper's hideout, Maxwell lay on the ground, still blindfolded, his mouth dry. The men hadn't fed him, but he could hear footsteps. Then a voice. Obinna. So, Maxwell, he sneered. Your daughter now thinks she's untouchable because she married money. What did you think would happen? That we'd all bow to you? Maxwell coughed. Obinna. We're blood. Why? Obinna spat on the floor. Blood means nothing in this world. You were always the lucky one. Now, it's my turn. Just then, one of the boys ran in, panicked. Sir, something dey happen-o. Big cars dey outside, black jeeps everywhere. What? Obinna barked. Dem wear black. Some carry gun. One of them just slapped Chi-boy for gate. Obinna's confidence disappeared. Before he could say another word, the metal door burst open. Benjamin stepped in with 4 armed men behind him. Obinna, Benjamin said, voice calm but deadly. You made the biggest mistake of your life. Obinna's eyes darted around, looking for an escape. But it was too late. Mr. Aide moved forward, grabbed Obinna by the collar, and slammed him against the wall. You're under arrest for kidnapping, he said. Benjamin rushed to Maxwell, untied him, and held him up. Sir, I'm sorry you went through this, he said, voice thick with emotion. Maxwell weakly smiled. My daughter chose well. Later, that night, Cynthia ran outside their home the moment she saw the black SUV pull in. The doors opened, and there stood her father, tired, bruised, but alive. Daddy, she screamed, hugging him so tightly he winced. I'm fine, my daughter. I'm fine. Tears rolled down her face as Benjamin stepped forward. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. He's home, he whispered. Mama Loveth came out next, shouting praises to God in Igbo, then bursting into full-blown worship. Neighbors gathered, cheering and clapping, amazed by the drama they had only heard whispers of. But Cynthia, she stood silently in the middle of it all. As the night breeze caressed her face, she remembered that night. The night she chose to stop a drunk man from driving. She never expected it would lead her here to wealth, to love, to a family restored. But something inside her knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because even though Obinna had been taken away in handcuffs, the man had allies. Politicians, thugs, silent backers in high places. And soon, they would strike back. Lagos mornings were always loud, but that day, Cynthia's home felt especially quiet. Maybe it was the aftershock of what had just happened, her father's return, the arrest of her uncle, and the revelation that the same blood she once shared with a trusted family member was the same hand that nearly destroyed her peace. Maxwell sat quietly in the corner of the living room, sipping hot pap while gazing out the window. His bruises had begun to fade, but the silence in his eyes told Cynthia that the trauma hadn't. Daddy, you should rest, she said softly, sitting beside him. Maxwell managed a weak smile. I'm fine, my daughter. Just thinking. About what? He glanced at her. About how one act of kindness changed your life, and saved mine. Elsewhere in Lagos, inside a lavish apartment, Obinna's lawyer sat across from a heavy-eyed political figure, Honorable Adebayo. You're sure you want to do this? The lawyer asked. Honorable Adebayo stood, adjusting his agbada. That Benjamin boy is too loud. He thinks his money makes him untouchable. We warned him not to get involved with that girl, but he didn't listen. Now she's dragging him into family village land disputes. He doesn't know how we play politics in this country. He turned to the lawyer. Get Obinna out. Pull every string. I don't care if it costs millions. That land must not be taken from us. Back at Benjamin Emeka Group headquarters, Cynthia sat in her new office overlooking Victoria Island, reviewing audit reports. But her mind wasn't there. Her phone kept buzzing with strange numbers. Anonymous texts had started arriving too. You don't know who you're dealing with. That land must not be touched. He won't always be there to protect you. Her hands trembled. Benjamin walked in and noticed immediately. What's wrong? She hesitated, then handed him the phone. His brows furrowed as he read through the messages. They're threatening you. She nodded. Benjamin didn't speak for a moment. Then he walked over to the window, phone still in hand. They're coming after the land, he said finally. That's why they took your father. They wanted him to sign it over. But it was stolen from us, Cynthia exclaimed. My dad has the papers. We have everything. Benjamin turned, his expression now fierce. Then we'll fight back. Properly. Not with threats. With power. With the law. The press conference, 1 week later. Benjamin held a press conference at one of his hotels in Lekki. Cameras flashed as journalists filled the room. He stepped up to the microphone, dressed in a sharp black suit, with Cynthia standing beside him in a deep green Ankara dress. She looked calm but strong, no longer just the poor waitress, but a woman shaped by pain and refined by purpose. I want to make something clear, Benjamin began. A few months ago, this woman here saved my life. Not because she had to, but because she cared. And in doing so, she saved her father, helped my heart heal, and gave me a new reason to fight for justice. He took a breath. That land in Anambra, once owned by Mr. Maxwell Okafor, was illegally seized by his own brother, Obinna Okafor, with the backing of corrupt officials. Today, I announce that our legal team has filed a full land reclamation case, backed by original documents and sworn witness statements. We will not rest until it is returned. Cameras went wild. News sites began carrying headlines. Billionaire declares war over village land for wife's family. Obinna Okafor, linked to kidnap, faces possible 20-year sentence. From waitress to warrior, Cynthia's unbelievable rise. But Benjamin didn't stop there. He used his influence to launch a rural land rights foundation, Justice for the Silenced, focused on fighting land theft and abuse across Nigeria. Suddenly, Cynthia was more than just Benjamin's wife. She became a symbol, and that made her a target. That night, Cynthia and Benjamin sat in their mansion's garden, watching their twin daughters giggle while running through the grass. I never imagined this life, she said, eyes soft. You earned it, Benjamin replied, every part of it. But just as he kissed her forehead, his phone vibrated. It was Mr. Aid, Benjamin answered, and his face went pale. What is it? Cynthia asked. Benjamin hung up slowly. Obinna was released. Cynthia's breath caught. What? They pushed the right people, paid the right people. He's walking free again. But how after all Benjamin looked at her, jaw clenched. They've declared war. We have no choice but to fight back. But even Benjamin didn't know what would come next, because Obinna had disappeared, vanished from Lagos. And he wasn't just seeking revenge. He was building something, gathering support, calling in old favors. And the next time he returned, he wouldn't come alone. The sun rose slowly over Lagos, but the warmth it brought could not melt the chill creeping through Benjamin's mansion. Inside, security had doubled. Armed guards stood at every entrance. Cynthia barely slept. She kept the twins close to her chest each night, her ears trained for any strange sound outside. Obinna had vanished from the radar, but his silence was louder than gunfire. It had been 2 weeks since news of his release. No calls, no threats, nothing. And that scared them more. Deep in Anambra, in an old colonial estate, Obinna stood before a group of men-local chiefs, land grabbers, political enforcers, and even cultists who had once ruled the shadows of the southeast. He wore a wine-colored senator suit and a smirk that carried venom. They think money and media can destroy me, he said slowly. But we know what built this country. Power. Street power. Grassroots control. Money can't buy that. He slammed a dusty folder on the table. This is the file on Benjamin Emeka's group. Their trucks, their supply routes, their soft spots. If we squeeze them, he'll fall. Someone raised a hand. And the girl? Obinna narrowed his eyes. She took what was mine. That land was supposed to be the foundation of my hotel project. It's no longer about land. It's war. Back in Lagos, 3 days later, it started with fire. One of Benjamin's logistics warehouses in Ogun State was torched overnight. Millions in goods destroyed. Workers narrowly escaped. 2 days later, a viral video surfaced online. A group of masked boys stood outside a government building, warning Benjamin to back off the land case or face the wrath of the ancestors. The media exploded. Rumors spread that Benjamin's life was in danger. Investors pulled back. Stocks of Emeka Holdings began to dip. Whispers circled in elite clubs and political lounges. Maybe he should let the land go. But Cynthia stood firm. She called for a family meeting with Benjamin and her parents. "No more hiding," she said, holding her father's hand. "That land is not just soil, it's our story. The only thing you didn't sell just to send me to school, you protected it even when you had nothing." Maxwell's voice trembled. "And I'd do it again, my daughter." Mama Loveth wiped a tear. "Whatever happens, we're together." Benjamin nodded slowly. "Then let's end this." The final blow, live in court. The courtroom in Orca was packed. Journalists, activists, police. Even the villagers from their hometown came, wearing headbands that read, "Land is life." Obinna arrived in style, flanked by lawyers, wearing dark sunglasses, acting like a celebrity. But inside, he was boiling. Benjamin and Cynthia arrived quietly. But when they walked in, the courtroom went silent. Cynthia took the stand. She spoke calmly, emotionally, and with full honesty. She shared how her father trusted his brother and was betrayed. She revealed the forged documents, backed by forensics. She even shared how she once waited tables, not knowing that her strength that night would lead her to this moment. Benjamin followed, not with pride, but with humility. He acknowledged how land theft in Nigeria had stolen not just property, but hope from millions. Then, he announced the official donation of 100 million to expand justice for the silenced. When Maxwell took the stand, he held up the original land certificate, worn and folded from years of keeping it hidden. The final nail was a confession video secured by Mr. Adioff, one of Obinna's thugs, admitting to the kidnapping, naming Obinna and his political allies. The judge didn't need time to decide. "Obinna Okafor, you are hereby sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiracy, abduction, forgery, and attempted fraud. Your accomplices will also face justice." Cynthia's hands flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Benjamin pulled her close, and the courtroom erupted in quiet applause. Outside, chants broke out. "Justice, justice." 6 months later, the land was returned to Maxwell, now converted into a community center and library built by the Emeka Foundation in his name. Benjamin and Cynthia's twins turned 1. Their birthday party was covered by national press, not because of the glitz, but because the woman of the hour once lived a life so far from privilege. The same hands that once cleared plates in a restaurant now held microphones, launching initiatives to empower women and young graduates with no connections. Cynthia stood before a crowd of young girls at the opening of a new youth skill center. She wore a simple white dress and held her twins, one in each arm. "Your background doesn't define your future," she said into the microphone. "Sometimes, the door you open for someone else is the same one that leads to your own breakthrough." Benjamin watched from the crowd, proud, tears quietly slipping down his cheeks. That night, as they sat by the balcony of their mansion, Cynthia turned to Benjamin. "Do you ever wonder, what if I hadn't stopped you that night?" Benjamin laughed. "I don't even remember what I was drinking." She leaned on his shoulder. "One decision," she whispered. "One small decision. And look where it led us." The stars twinkled above, the world silent and calm. But in that quiet, their hearts beat loud with gratitude, love, and the memory of how kindness had changed everything. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.